Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into the fascinating ideas that shape our world and make complex topics accessible and engaging. As you listen today, maybe take a moment to really think about your own relationship with technology. Does it consistently serve you? Does it, truly make your life easier, more fulfilling, more connected? Or does it sometimes feel like you're caught in its current, serving it constantly pulled by notifications, chasing the next upgrade, striving to keep up in a never-ending cycle of more, faster, bigger? It's a world, isn't it, that relentlessly pushes for expansion, for breaking all perceived limits. Okay, let's unpack this. What if the very tools designed to help us are actually, in some fundamental ways, leading us astray? What if we've collectively taken a wrong turn, focusing on relentless growth at all costs, when true progress and well-being lie in something entirely different? Today, we're embarking on a profound deep dive into the compelling ideas of E.F. Schumacher, specifically drawing from the insightful sources you've provided, titled Schumacher, Technology, Humanity, and Sustainable Alternatives. This isn't just a historical look back at an economic thinker. This material offers a unique, almost prophetic lens through which to view our modern technological landscape and its deep impact on humanity and the very planet we inhabit. Schumacher was asking these big, uncomfortable questions long before they became, mainstream discussion points.
What's truly fascinating here is how Schumacher, even decades ago, articulated what feels like the very root cause of so many of our modern anxieties. Not just about technology and its rapid advancement, but fundamentally about our place within the world. He presents a central, rather challenging premise, that our current technological trajectory might be profoundly misaligned with both genuine human well-being and the natural harmony of the planet. He wasn't just observing symptoms, he was diagnosing a systemic imbalance, a fundamental flaw in our approach.
And our mission for this deep dive is crystal clear. You, our incredible listener, provided these compelling sources, and our job is to extract the most potent and transformative insights from them. We're going to explore Schumacher's stark contrast between modern technology and nature's inherent wisdom. Then we'll delve into his inspiring vision of technology with a human face. We'll unravel why he believed modern tech failed so spectacularly to alleviate global poverty, examine the surprising and often unsettling social consequences of our work culture as technology evolves, discuss the heavy global responsibility that falls upon rich societies, and finally, critically evaluate the strengths and inherent challenges of his proposed alternative.
And these aren't just abstract philosophical concepts confined to academic texts. Not at all. The insights we're about to explore directly impact your daily life, the work you do, the community you live in, and ultimately the future of the planet we all share. These ideas offer a radically different way to think about progress, about success, and about what it truly means to live a life of purpose and connection, rather than just, accumulation.
So what does this all mean for you? Let's dive in and find out. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, and perhaps a bit provocative right from the start. Schumacher kicks off his argument by drawing a very clear, almost foundational line in the sand between two incredibly different philosophies of growth. One governs nature, the other drives modern technology. He really asks us to consider the fundamental, often unstated rules governing each. What a way to start, right? He's making us question everything we thought we knew about progress.
Indeed. Schumacher emphasizes that nature operates with an innate wisdom, a kind of built-in guiding system that ensures its long-term health and resilience. The first and perhaps most crucial characteristic he points to is what he calls a self-limiting principle. Nature inherently, always, so to speak, knows where and when to stop. And this isn't just about physical boundaries like a mountain range stopping a forest, but an intrinsic, almost conscious wisdom woven into the fabric of natural systems. He goes so far as to say the mystery of natural cessation of growth is actually greater than the mystery of natural growth.
That's such a profound and counterintuitive idea for us, isn't it? That the stopping is more mysterious, more powerful than the growing. It completely flips our usual understanding of progress, which often champions endless expansion, completely on its head. Can you give us some examples of what he means by this natural cessation?
Absolutely. Think about it. A tree grows to a certain height and then stops. It doesn't just keep growing indefinitely until it topples under its own weight. A river finds its course and carves a path, but it doesn't endlessly expand its banks without constraint. A population of animals reaches a sustainable number within its ecosystem, regulated by available resources and predators, rather than multiplying without limit until it exhausts its environment. Nature's growth isn't about infinite linear expansion. It's about reaching a harmonious balance, a cyclical process of renewal, regeneration, and, crucially, constraint. This concept directly challenges the foundational assumption of many of our modern economic models, which are often predicated on continuous, often limitless, growth. Schumacher is essentially saying that the very blueprint for natural success is about knowing when to stop, a lesson we seem to have forgotten entirely.
So it's not just about stopping, but about operating within a certain scale, a certain intensity. It's like nature has its own perfect recipe for stability, and it just sticks to it.
Precisely. And flowing directly from that self-limiting principle is the idea of inherent measure. All natural things possess measure as an intrinsic characteristic. This applies to their size, speed, or violence. Natural entities operate within specific, appropriate parameters and proportions. No single component overwhelms the system or goes beyond what is necessary for the health of the whole. For instance, the speed of a river, even a powerful one, is contained within its banks. The size of an animal is proportionate to its role and the resources in its ecosystem. Even the contained force of a storm, while destructive, operates within certain meteorological measures that ultimately contribute to a larger global balance. These are powerful forces, yes, but they exist within a natural measure. There's an innate proportionality that ensures the system's integrity, preventing any single element from becoming, cancerous to the whole.
And because nature has these built-in stopping mechanisms and this inherent measure, it naturally leads to certain beneficial qualities, right? These virtues, as he calls them.
Exactly. As a direct consequence of this self-limiting principle and inherent measure, nature exhibits vital virtues. It is self-balancing, self-adjusting, and self-cleansing. These are nature's built-in sustainability mechanisms, ensuring long-term resilience and health without external intervention. Consider how forests regenerate after a fire, slowly but surely returning to life, filtering the air and water. Wetlands naturally filter pollutants from water, acting as Earth's kidneys. Predator-prey dynamics maintain population balances, ensuring no single species overwhelms the others. These aren't externally managed, but internal, automatic, and incredibly wise processes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Schumacher is highlighting that natural systems are not just about individual growth, but about the health of the whole. They thrive and endure because they operate within these very wise, inbuilt constraints. It's a testament to systems thinking, really, long before we even conceptualize the term that way.
So you've got nature, which is all about harmony, self-regulation, and crucially knowing when to stop. And then Schumacher argues you have modern technology, which is, the complete opposite. What does that contrast look like in his analysis?
Indeed. Modern technology, or as Schumacher rather pointedly puts it, man dominated by technology and specialization, operates without any recognition of a self-limiting principle. It does not inherently restrain itself in terms of size, speed, or violence. In fact, the prevailing drive is often towards maximizing these very attributes, not balancing them. There's no internal governor that says, okay, enough is enough when it comes to technological advancement or economic growth.
And this lack of a natural stop button, this relentless drive for maximization, how does that actually manifest in the world around us?
Well, think of the continual pursuit of faster processors in our devices, larger and more powerful machines in industry, or exponentially more destructive weapons in warfare. Consider economic growth models that relentlessly push for expansion without truly accounting for the finite resources of the planet. There's no inherent, internally driven stop button, no natural governor that prompts us to consider the appropriate scale or pace. Our technological trajectory is one of pushing boundaries, often without considering the wisdom or even the necessity of limits.
Right, and because there's no inherent limit, no natural break, it logically follows that there's also an absence of balancing virtues. If nature self-adjusts, what does modern tech do?
Exactly. This unbounded drive for expansion means that technology, in its modern form, does not possess the virtues of being self-balancing, self-adjusting, and self-cleansing. When imbalances inevitably occur, like industrial pollution choking rivers, widespread resource depletion, social disruption from automation, or the endless piles of e-waste accumulating globally, they're almost always seen as external problems. Problems to be managed after the fact, through regulation or costly cleanup efforts. They are rarely viewed as internal failures of the system's design itself, or as a signal that the underlying philosophy is flawed. There's a reactive approach to symptoms, rather than a proactive design that integrates balance from the very beginning. It's like constantly trying to mop up a flood without turning off the tap.
And ultimately, Schumacher says this makes modern technology act like a foreign body within the delicate, subtle system of nature. That's a powerful metaphor, isn't it? It conjures images of rejection or illness.
It is a striking metaphor, and very intentional. Schumacher describes the super technology of the modern world, as acting as a foreign body within the delicate and subtle system of nature. And just as a living organism rejects a foreign body that isn't compatible, he observes numerous signs of rejection from the natural world. These signs indicate detrimental impacts on both human well-being and the natural environment. Climate change, with its escalating extreme weather events, is a massive sign of rejection, you could argue. Biodiversity loss, widespread pollution of our air and water, the acidification of oceans, these are all nature pushing back. But he also extends this to human well-being. The mental health crisis, the sense of disconnect and spiritual malaise many people feel, could also be seen as signs of rejection from human systems. This raises an important question. What happens when a system built on endless expansion tries to exist within a finite, self-regulating world? Schumacher suggests the answer is precisely the multifaceted crisis we find ourselves in today. It's a profound indictment of our current path.
Wow, powerful stuff. It really makes you rethink what we mean by progress when the very planet and our own inner selves seem to be rejecting the direction we're heading. Schumacher is challenging our most fundamental assumptions here. Okay, so if the current path isn't working and modern tech is, as you said, like a foreign body, what's the alternative? Schumacher wasn't just a critic who pointed out the problems. He offered a powerful, hopeful vision of what technology could be. He called it a technology with a human face. For you, our listener, just imagine for a moment what that might look and feel like in your daily life, in your community. How would it differ from what we have now?
This concept represents a truly fundamental reorientation, a radical shift in perspective. Schumacher's technology with a human face is about moving away from an efficiency at all costs mindset to one that explicitly prioritizes human flourishing and agency. Its primary task, he states, is to lighten the burden of work man has to carry in order to stay alive and develop his potential. It's designed to serve the human person instead of making him the servant of machines. This isn't just about productivity in terms of output, it's about purposeful productivity, ensuring that the tools we create genuinely empower us, make our lives richer, and free up our creative potential, rather than making us subservient to the systems and machines themselves.
So it's about technology working for us rather than the other way around. Can you give us a tangible sense of what that might look like in practice?
Certainly. Think about simple, robust tools that genuinely empower individual craftspeople to create beautiful, lasting goods with their own hands and minds. Consider an accessible, locally maintainable water pump for a rural community that empowers local agriculture and improves health, rather than some complex, high-tech irrigation system that requires foreign experts and proprietary parts. Or imagine communication technologies that truly foster meaningful connection and understanding between people, rather than simply bombarding them with distractions and shallow interactions. The emphasis is on technology that augments human capability and dignity, ensuring that the human element remains at the center of the equation.
Right, and it's not about replacing us, about making human hands and brains redundant, but about enhancing us, celebrating our innate capacities.
Exactly. This technology aims to reintegrate human hands and brains into the productive process. Instead of making human hands and brains redundant, which is often the stated goal, or at least the outcome of much modern automation, it helps them to become far more productive than they have ever been before. Schumacher envisions a world where everybody can be welcome to lend a hand in useful creative work, blurring the lines between what we consider work and what we consider leisure or personal fulfillment. Imagine a world where your brain and hands are celebrated for their skill and ingenuity, not seen as bottlenecks to be automated away.
But as essential, valuable components of a creative process. Yeah, I like that.
It's about technologies that augment human skill and creativity, rather than replacing it entirely, allowing us to engage more deeply with our productive tasks.
And that profound reintegration, that valuing of human skill, leads directly into the idea of promoting meaningful work. It sounds like he's trying to heal the spiritual wound of modern labor.
He absolutely is. This approach aims to restore the kind of work that he enjoys most, creative, useful work with hands and brains. Schumacher argues that such work, when done in his own time, at his own pace, and with excellent tools, naturally blurs the distinction between work and leisure, making people always agreeably, productively engaged. Work, in this vision, becomes a profound source of satisfaction and personal growth, not just, a means to an end. Picture a carpenter taking immense pride in their handcrafted furniture, a gardener tending their plot with care and intention, or a local baker using traditional methods passed down through generations. In these scenarios, the process of creation, the engagement of mind and body, becomes as important and fulfilling as the final product itself. It's about finding joy and purpose in the act of making.
Okay, so this technology with a human face isn't some abstract concept that only philosophers can grasp. It has a very practical, tangible form and a specific name.
It absolutely does. It's synonymous with what Schumacher calls intermediate technology. This is technology that is vastly superior to the primitive technology of bygone ages, but at the same time, much simpler, cheaper, and freer than the super technology of the rich. It occupies a kind of Goldilocks zone. Not too primitive to be inefficient, but not overly complex or expensive to be inaccessible. It's just right. It's also referred to as self-help technology or even democratic or people's technology, characterized by its accessibility to all, rather than being reserved for the rich and powerful or requiring specialized expertise to operate. What's truly fascinating here is that it's not anti-technology. Schumacher isn't advocating a return to pre-industrial ages. Instead, he's advocating for appropriate technology tools that are just right for human scale, local needs, and ecological limits, striking a balance between effectiveness and human compatibility.
And that means it also has to fundamentally align with nature's wisdom and human scale, the very principles we discussed earlier. It has to fit.
Absolutely. This technology is consciously designed to be compatible with the laws of ecology and gentle in its use of scarce resources. It respects the profound idea that man is small, and therefore small is beautiful, actively rejecting gigantism in all its forms, which Schumacher believes leads inevitably to self-destruction. This could look like decentralized renewable energy systems designed for local grids, rather than massive, ecologically disruptive power plants. It could be composting toilets that return nutrients to the soil, or permaculture techniques for food production that work with natural cycles. It encourages local food systems and smaller, more efficient production units that empower local communities. It's about finding that sweet spot where our tools actually live in harmony with the planet, not against it, allowing for regenerative processes rather than purely extractive ones.
It sounds like it fosters a kind of decentralized grassroots approach, almost like a communal craft, where many hands contribute rather than just a few highly specialized ones.
It absolutely does, and this is where Schumacher draws inspiration from a truly profound insight by Mahatma Gandhi. The poor of the world cannot be helped by mass production, only by production by the masses. This concept, fundamental to technology with a human face, emphasizes widespread decentralized production using accessible tools and human ingenuity rather than highly centralized capital-intensive factories that concentrate power and wealth. This raises an important question for us today. Are we primarily designing for sheer quantity of output or for quality of life and widespread participation? Schumacher, inspired by Gandhi, firmly comes down on the side of empowering many people to produce for themselves and their local markets, fostering self-sufficiency and dignity.
So, to summarize, a technology with a human face is about consciously developing and applying tools that are in fundamental harmony with human nature and living nature. It's about fostering creativity, satisfaction, and sustainability in every aspect, standing in stark contrast to the current trajectory of modern technology that so often seems to alienate us from both ourselves and the natural world. It's a vision that truly asks us to reconsider the very purpose of our tools. Okay, you might think that modern technology, with all its incredible advancements, its efficiency, and its promise of progress, would be the universal answer to global problems, especially the persistent challenge of poverty, right? I mean, that's a narrative we often hear. But Schumacher says, not so fast. He offers a counter-argument that is not only surprising, but deeply unsettling to those of us who just assume technology is always a benign force for good.
Schumacher is remarkably blunt, almost confrontational here. He explicitly states, there is nothing in the experience of the last 25 years to suggest that modern technology, as we know it, can really help us to alleviate world poverty. He's not just skeptical. He sees no empirical proof from recent history, no evidence that the prevailing model of technology transfer or adoption actually works for the poor on a widespread, sustainable basis. This is a powerful assessment that forces us to question the often optimistic narratives we hear about progress and development. It's asking us to look critically at the actual measurable outcomes, not just the good intentions or the technological capabilities themselves.
Right. And not only does he argue it fails to alleviate poverty, but he makes an even more damning claim that it actually makes things worse by exacerbating unemployment on a global scale.
Precisely. Far from solving poverty, Schumacher contends that modern technology has actually intensified the problem of unemployment. He points to staggering levels like 30% in many so-called developing countries and warns that this crisis threatens to become endemic also in many of the rich countries. Technology, designed primarily to save labor and maximize efficiency, ends up displacing human work on a massive scale, leaving millions without a means to earn a living or contribute productively. Think about the decline of traditional industries in the West due to automation, the impact of advanced manufacturing on local economies in developing nations, or the precarious, low-wage, high-turnover labor often found in the gig economy. These are all examples of how the relentless drive for technological efficiency can come at the profound cost of widespread human employment and dignity.
It's a paradox, isn't it? Tech designed to make things easier, actually making work harder to find for millions.
It really is. And any perceived successes of the past, any periods where modern tech seemed to lift people out of poverty, were, in his view, ultimately illusory. He argues we're now facing a threefold crisis that makes that kind of unsustainable growth utterly untenable. This sounds like an existential warning.
It does, an existential warning. What are these three crises that he identified? That seems critical to understanding why the old model won't work anymore.
Right. First, there's human nature's revolt. People, he observed, are struggling profoundly under inhuman technological, organizational, and political patterns. They feel suffocated and debilitated by systems that are too large, too complex, and too impersonal, leading to widespread alienation and a sense of powerlessness. Second, we have the undeniable environmental breakdown. The living environment is aching and groaning and giving signs of partial breakdown. I mean, that's a prophetic description of climate change, biodiversity loss, and ecosystem collapse decades before these terms became mainstream conversation. And third, there's the looming specter of resource depletion. He warns that serious bottlenecks and virtual exhaustion loom ahead in the quite foreseeable future for non-renewable resources, particularly fossil fuels, upon which our entire industrial system is built. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is Schumacher's stark warning that the very foundation of modern industrial growth is crumbling. Attempting to export this inherently unstable model to poor countries, he suggests, is not only ineffective, but an even more dangerous proposition given these compounding crises.
So the very model that rich countries develop for themselves is, in fact, incompatible with the realities and the inherent limitations of poor countries. It's not a universal solution, then. Far from it.
Absolutely not. Schumacher argues quite forcefully that modern Western technology presupposes that you are already rich. This isn't just about the initial cost of purchasing advanced machinery, but also the massive capital investment needed to establish a single workplace in the release. The infrastructure, the specialized training for a highly skilled workforce, the intricate supply chains, and a particular institutional and educational environment. Poor countries simply lack this concentrated capital and supporting ecosystem. When they attempt to adopt this inappropriate technology, they face more dire consequences in terms of mass unemployment, mass migration into cities, rural decay, and intolerable social tensions. The allure of urban centers pulls people from traditional agrarian lives, disrupting social fabrics and leading to the rapid growth of slums and widespread social instability.
So it's not just a bad fit, it actively harms communities that aren't set up for it, creating more problems than it solves.
Wow. Which brings us back to that crucial distinction you mentioned earlier, inspired by Gandhi. Mass production versus production by the masses. This seems to be at the heart of why modern tech fails the poor.
Right. Explain that distinction again, because it feels really key.
Okay. Modern technology, as it has evolved, is almost exclusively designed for mass production. This is based on sophisticated, highly capital-intensive, high-energy input-dependent, and human labor-saving technology. Its primary goal is to produce vast quantities of goods at the lowest possible unit cost, often requiring massive factories and complex global supply chains. This contrasts sharply with Gandhi's profound insight, which Schumacher fully endorses, that the poor of the world cannot be helped by mass production, only by production by the masses. Production by the masses, facilitated by intermediate technology, mobilizes the widespread resources of clever brains and skillful hands with first-class tools that are accessible and affordable. It's about empowering many people to produce for their own needs and local markets, fostering self-reliance and community wealth, rather than waiting for distant, centralized industries to provide for them. This raises an important question. Are we prioritizing abstract economic efficiency and consolidated wealth at the expense of human dignity, widespread participation, and local resilience? Schumacher's argument is that the latter is the true and only path to genuinely alleviating poverty.
So, in summary, Schumacher concludes that modern technology, with its capital-intensive, labor-saving, and environmentally damaging nature, is fundamentally ill-suited to the conditions and needs of the world's poor. Far from being a solution, it exacerbates existing problems, leading to further social and economic disarray rather than genuine alleviation of poverty. It's a real wake-up call to reassess our development models entirely. Okay, shifting gears a bit. You might not realize it, but modern technology has had some pretty profound and frankly disturbing social consequences on the very nature of work itself, and by extension, on our inner lives and societal values. Prepare for a bit of a mind bender as we look at Schumacher's startling calculation about total social time. It's a statistic that might really make you pause.
It is a truly eye-opening calculation, and it underpins much of his critique of modern work. Schumacher estimates that in a highly industrialized society, roughly a mere 3.3% of total social time is spent on actual production, in the narrow sense that is, directly making, growing, or building tangible goods. This leaves a staggering 96.7% for other activities. What's truly fascinating and quite alarming, here's the sheer scale of the imbalance. It implies that for most people, most of the time, our direct, tangible engagement with the world of production, with the fundamental act of creating what we need to survive and thrive, has almost entirely disappeared. Our societies are structured such that direct production is a marginal activity for the vast majority.
Wow, 3.3%, that's tiny. And this extreme reduction of time spent on direct production, this marginalization of actual making, has a strange and deeply inverted effect on who gets respect and prestige in society, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, leading to a profound loss of prestige for producers. The time spent on elementary production becomes so reduced, so confined, that it pales into insignificance, that it carries no real weight, let alone prestige. Consequently, Schumacher notes, quite sardonically, the prestige carried by people in modern industrial society varies in inverse proportion to their closeness to actual production. Prestige is instead carried by those who fill the other 96.7% of social time, which he humorously refers to as entertainers, but also the executors of Parkinson's law.
Exactly. Think about it. Occupations perceived as abstract, managerial, or purely intellectual often command higher respect and remuneration than, say, skilled manual labor, farming, or traditional crafts, even though the latter are utterly fundamental to our very survival and well-being.
So, the people actually making the stuff we rely on, those in direct connection with materials and tangible output, often get the least respect. That's a serious inversion of values, reflecting a deep societal disconnect from the source of our sustenance. It's a scathing indictment of how we value labor. And this isn't just about prestige or abstract social standing. It impacts the very nature of the work itself, transforming it into something, well, soul-crushing.
Soul-crushing.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
It does. This extreme confinement of productive time, coupled with the drive for efficiency and specialization, has had the inevitable effect of taking all normal human pleasure and satisfaction out of the time spent on this work, Schumacher starkly observes. Virtually all real production has been turned into an inhuman chore which does not enrich a man but empties him. He delivers a truly poignant and chilling observation here, one that resonates deeply. From the factory, dead matter goes out improved, whereas men there are corrupted and degraded. This captures the profound human cost of this system, where the pursuit of material efficiency comes at the expense of human flourishing. This raises an important question for us to ponder. If our primary mode of work often degrades us, what does that mean for our collective sense of self-worth, purpose, and even our spiritual health? Schumacher argues it's a profound spiritual and psychological injury, a kind of modern wound.
That's incredibly powerful and deeply disturbing. Men there are corrupted and degraded. Wow. It means modern technology has effectively deprived us of fulfilling work, the kind of work that truly nourishes us as human beings.
Exactly. Modern technology, in its relentless pursuit of scale and efficiency, has deprived man of the kind of work that he enjoys most, creative, youthful work with hands and brains. Instead, it offers plenty of work of a fragmented kind, most of which he does not enjoy at all. This fragmentation is key. Rather than seeing a project through from start to finish, from conception to completion, a worker often performs only a tiny, repetitive piece of a larger process. This removes the holistic satisfaction, the pride of creation, that comes from seeing and experiencing the full impact of one's labor. You become a cog in a vast machine, often without any real connection to the whole.
And Schumacher even connects this profound disconnect to our mental health, suggesting it contributes significantly to what he calls modern neurosis. Could our constant need for distraction and entertainment actually be a symptom of this profound disconnect from meaningful work?
He does suggest that, and it's a striking connection. Schumacher suggests that a great part of the modern neurosis may be due to this very fact, this deep detachment from being creatively, usefully, productively engaged with both his hands and his brains. The human need for meaningful engagement with the material world, for exercising both physical dexterity and mental faculties in a purposeful way, is left largely unmet by much of modern work. This, he argues, leads to a deep-seated psychological distress, a spiritual emptiness that manifests in various forms of anxiety and discontent. If you're like many of us, experiencing a constant urge for distraction, for escapism through entertainment, or even less healthy coping mechanisms, Schumacher might suggest that it's not just a sign of personal failing, but a symptom of a societal system that fails to provide fundamental human nourishment through work.
It seems like a lot of what we do work-wise, the 96.7% of social time, is also just about maintaining the system itself, creating more layers of complexity rather than direct value. Is that fair?
That's the essence of the multiplication of unnecessary or indirect work. Schumacher contends that technology has multiplied the number of people who are exceedingly busy doing kinds of work, which, if it is productive at all, is so only in an indirect or roundabout way, and much of which would not be necessary at all if technology were rather less modern. Think of the endless bureaucracy in large organizations, the countless meetings that often feel unproductive, or the sheer effort involved in managing overly complex technological systems and their data. Much of this busyness serves the technology itself or its intricate supporting structures, rather than directly creating tangible human value or meeting fundamental needs. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Schumacher is highlighting the self-perpetuating nature of modern systems, where a huge amount of effort goes into maintaining complexity, managing information, and coordinating large scales, rather than into the direct, simple act of creation.
It's a treadmill of busyness.
Yeah, and it all culminates in a truly unsettling idea, one that Schumacher explicitly links to Karl Marx, the creation of useless people. That phrase alone is incredibly jarring.
It is jarring. What exactly does he mean by useless people in this context?
It is indeed jarring and meant to be provocative. Schumacher notes, drawing from Marx, that the production of too many useful things results in too many useless people, particularly when the processes of production are joyless and boring. This isn't just about unemployment in the strict economic sense. It implies a profound societal waste of human potential, creativity, and satisfaction. People are left either unemployed, underemployed, or engaged in work that offers no fulfillment, no sense of purpose or meaning. That's a profoundly challenging thought for our listener. If we're becoming so incredibly good at making things with fewer and fewer human hands, why are so many people left feeling purposeless, redundant, or, as Schumacher and Marx put it, useless? It's a powerful critique of efficiency without soul.
These consequences collectively paint a rather bleak picture. Modern technology, by drastically reducing meaningful productive engagement, has created a society where work is dehumanizing, where prestige is inverted, and where widespread dissatisfaction and even neurosis prevail. It forces us to ask, what is the true cost of our relentless pursuit of technological advancement? Let's zoom out now and look at the bigger picture Schumacher paints, especially regarding the responsibility of affluent societies. He doesn't pull any punches here. In fact, his insights might make you think very differently about global dynamics and perhaps even your own role within them. He explicitly links wealthy nations to the crises we've been discussing.
Schumacher directly links rich societies to the threefold crisis we discussed earlier: human nature's revolt, environmental breakdown, and resource depletion. He states unequivocally that this crisis is rooted in an unsustainable way of life, based on materialism, i.e., on permanent, limitless expansionism in a finite environment. Rich societies, by their very nature, are implicitly the architects and primary beneficiaries of this modern technology that is increasingly inhuman and acts as a foreign body in nature. Their consumption patterns, their technological choices, and their economic models set the global precedent and propagate these unsustainable practices. What's truly fascinating and quite uncomfortable here is that Schumacher doesn't just see rich countries as contributors to the problem,
but as the originators.
Exactly, as the originators of the underlying philosophy of limitless growth that fuels these crises. They are the driving force behind a model that is ultimately unsustainable for everyone.
And he doesn't stop there. He makes a pretty bold and frankly quite provocative claim, calling rich societies problem children. That's quite an inversion of the usual narrative, isn't it?
It is a radical inversion, and intentionally so. Schumacher explicitly states that the problem children of the world are not the core societies, which are often cast in that role, but rather the rich societies. This is a direct and unsparing accusation that suggests the rich society's insatiable consumption patterns, their unbridled technological choices, and their pursuit of limitless growth are actually at the root of many global problems, including the very poverty they often try to help alleviate. It's a powerful statement that challenges the notion that wealth automatically equates to wisdom or responsibility.
That's a pretty bold statement, turning the traditional narrative of developed versus developing nations completely on its head. It forces us, the listeners, to ask, are we the affluent part of the solution, or are we fundamentally the source of the problem? It requires a profound level of self-reflection.
But despite this scathing critique, he also sees a glimmer of hope, a surprising opportunity for these rich societies to find a path to self-correction, or even salvation, through their engagement with the so-called Third World. That seems counterintuitive.
It does. How could engaging with poorer nations save the rich ones?
It is a profoundly nuanced and hopeful perspective amidst the critique. He views the rich country's recent efforts to consider the Third World and to try to mitigate its poverty as an honorable one, acknowledging that while the motives may be mixed and persistent exploitative practices still exist, the impulse itself has some merit. But here's the crucial, almost self-serving part. He suggests that this very engagement could save us, meaning the rich countries themselves. This isn't altruism for its own sake. It's a realization that the poverty of the poor makes it, in any case, impossible for them successfully to adopt our technology.
Okay. So by being forced to confront the limitations of poverty, rich nations might learn something vital about their own unsustainable ways.
Exactly. Working with developing countries, which forces a recognition of the limitations of poverty, can serve as a wholesome school for everyone, providing knowledge and experience how to help ourselves. This implies that grappling with the challenges of poverty and the imperative for appropriate human-scale technology in the Third World can illuminate the path to a more sustainable and humane future. This raises an important question. Could confronting the stark realities of scarcity and human-scale needs in poorer nations actually be a masterclass for rich societies on how to live within ecological and human limits, revealing a healthier path for everyone? It suggests that the solutions for global poverty and for the sustainability of rich societies are intrinsically linked.
So it's not just about charity or aid, it's about mutual learning and ultimately maybe even self-preservation for the rich, leading to a shared universal need for a technology with a human face.
Absolutely. Schumacher asserts that both rich and poor countries, therefore, need a different kind of technology, a technology with a human face. This underlines a universal responsibility and a common imperative to pivot towards a more humane and ecological technological paradigm, not just for developing nations to catch up, but for all nations, rich and poor alike, to find a more sustainable way forward. This envisioned new lifestyle must be compatible with the real needs of human nature, with the health of living nature around us, and with the resource endowment of the world.
So the solution isn't just for them over there. It's a fundamental reorientation for all of us, right here, right now, wherever we are on the planet.
In essence, Schumacher places the primary burden of responsibility squarely on rich societies for having created and perpetuated an unsustainable, crisis-ridden global system through their technological and economic choices. However, he also identifies their engagement with the poor and the imperative to develop a technology with a human face as a potential path to their own and global salvation. It's a challenging yet ultimately hopeful message.
Okay, so we've explored Schumacher's vision of technology with a human face. It sounds beautiful, almost idyllic in its emphasis on meaning and harmony. But is it just a utopian dream, a romantic ideal that can never truly be achieved in our complex world? Or is it a truly practical way forward? Now, let's take a critical look at his proposed alternative. What are its real strengths, and what are the major hurdles to its implementation that Schumacher himself recognized?
Well, Schumacher presents technology with a human face as an incredibly comprehensive and integrated response, not just a series of band-aid solutions for existing problems. One of its greatest and most immediate strengths is that it directly addresses the threefold crisis we discussed earlier, the revolt of human nature, environmental breakdown, and resource depletion. It's presented as the essential, holistic response, aiming for nothing less than a new lifestyle which is compatible with the real needs of human nature, with the health of living nature around us, and with the resource endowment of the world. It's a vision that seeks to heal the fundamental disconnects at the root of our current predicament.
And it really champions the human element, doesn't it? It seems to be designed to mend the spiritual and psychological injuries of modern work.
It absolutely does. It fundamentally rehumanizes work and life. It proposes to reintegrate the human being with his skillful hands and creative brain into the productive process. This directly addresses the dehumanizing, fragmented, and joyless nature of much modern work, allowing for creative, useful work with hands and brains that brings genuine pleasure and deep satisfaction. It envisions a blurring of the traditional distinction between work and leisure, making productive activity inherently enjoyable and fulfilling. This approach understands that human beings thrive when they are active participants in creation, not just passive consumers or, cogs in a machine.
Right. And this emphasis on human scale work and natural limits also sounds like a much needed course correction for our planet's ailing ecosystems.
Absolutely. It's designed to be inherently ecologically sound and resource conscious. Described as compatible with the laws of ecology and gentle in its use of scarce resources, this technology explicitly rejects the limitless expansionism that drives modern industrial society and is the root cause of our environmental crises. It embodies a philosophy of nonviolence and humility toward the infinitely subtle system of natural harmony. It's about respecting the planet's carrying capacity and working with natural systems rather than attempting to dominate or exploit them.
It also seems to empower local communities rather than centralizing power and production in vast, distant corporations. That feels like a major plus.
That's a crucial advantage. It promotes decentralization and accessibility. By focusing on production by the masses rather than mass production, it is inherently conducive to decentralization and ensures that technology is accessible and usable by everybody. This directly counters the capital-intensive and exclusive nature of much modern technology, which, as we discussed, has failed so spectacularly to alleviate poverty globally and often concentrates wealth and power in fewer hands. It fosters self-reliance and local economic resilience.
But for many who hear this, a skeptical question might arise. Is this intermediate technology actually viable? Does Schumacher offer proof that it can work, or is it merely theoretical?
Schumacher certainly believes it's not just viable, but eminently practical. He presents intermediate technology as vastly superior to the primitive technology of bygone ages, but at the same time much simpler, cheaper, and freer than the super technology of the rich. He explicitly cites the pioneering work of organizations like the Intermediate Technology Development Group, which he helped found, by the way, as concrete proof that such a technology is in fact possible, that it is viable. This isn't just a philosophical concept. It's a demonstrable approach that offers tangible benefits in real-world applications. This is a comprehensive and integrated response, not just a patch-up. It addresses the crisis at its roots, from human psychology and economic structure to ecological limits.
And if we embrace this vision, it sounds like it would lead to a broader, more profound societal well-being beyond just economic metrics, like less stress, maybe.
That's precisely the hope and the promise. Schumacher suggests that such a profound societal shift would significantly reduce the widespread need for mindless entertainment or other drugs, and would unquestionably lead to much less illness, both physical and mental. This, in turn, would foster a more harmonious, healthy, and genuinely flourishing society overall. Ultimately, he argues it's not just a good idea, but an absolute necessity for survival. While he acknowledges that this vision might seem romantic, a utopian vision to some, he firmly argues it is a necessary dream for humanity's long-term survival, as the current industrial system is in very deep trouble and holds no promise of survival. The choice for Schumacher is between this path and ultimate self-destruction.
Okay, so it's a powerful and coherent vision with significant strengths. But it's also clear that the biggest hurdles to its implementation aren't technical. They're fundamentally human, cultural, and deeply ingrained in our modern psyche. What are these challenges that Schumacher himself recognized?
They are indeed profound. One significant challenge, and a deeply psychological one, is the resistance from what Schumacher likens to a drug addict society. He suggests a present consumer society is a drug addict who finds it extremely difficult to get off the hook. This vivid analogy highlights the deep-seated resistance to fundamental change due to ingrained habits, the incessant craving for more convenience, more consumption, and a relentless pursuit of material gratification. We are, he argues, addicted to the very system that is degrading us.
That's a powerful analogy, like trying to quit something you know is bad for you, but the pull is so strong. And he also talks about the difficulty of achieving simplicity, ironically enough.
Yes, another difficulty lies in simplicity itself. He notes that it is rather more difficult to recapture directness and simplicity. than to advance in the direction of ever more sophistication and complexity. The required flair of real insight to make things simple again is often lacking in those who have become alienated from productive work and direct engagement with nature. We've become accustomed to solving problems by adding complexity, by throwing more technology at them, rather than stepping back and finding elegantly simple solutions.
And it goes against the grain of our dominant cultural narrative, doesn't it? The prevailing notion of progress, always forward, always bigger.
Indeed. There's strong opposition for what he calls the forward stampede. This concept faces formidable opposition from those who believe the solution is simply more, further, quicker, richer, and that there is no alternative but to intensify current technological trajectories. This dominant mindset represents a formidable obstacle as it dismisses any alternative, any call for limits, as unrealistic or even regressive. It's a powerful current to swim against.
It sounds like pioneering efforts for this kind of technology have also faced direct resistance and skepticism from established institutions, people calling them names even.
Absolutely. Schumacher points out the lack of official recognition for pioneering groups, like the Soil Association, which embody the principles of a human-faced technology, focusing on organic agriculture and sustainable practices. They have been dismissed as the muck and mystery people and have not attracted official support or recognition from mainstream scientific, governmental, or economic bodies. This indicates a systemic resistance within established institutions to ideas that challenge the conventional wisdom and the status quo. Furthermore, implementing this vision requires a profound attitudinal shift from individuals and society as a whole. It demands an effort of the imagination and an abandonment of fear, and a courage to say no to the fashions and fascinations of the age. This is a deep cultural and spiritual transformation, not merely a technical or economic adjustment, which is inherently the most challenging aspect. This raises an important question for us, the listeners. Can we collectively muster the courage and imagination to change course, to abandon our fears of a different future, or are we too deeply invested in the status quo, despite its profound and escalating flaws?
And while small is beautiful is a powerful guiding principle, the source doesn't really detail the practical steps for a large-scale transition for an entire industrialized society. That seems like a gap.
That's a fair and critical point regarding the question of scale and transition. While emphasizing small is beautiful as a philosophical and practical principle, the source material we have doesn't really detail the practical pathways for a large-scale industrial society. To transition to a predominantly intermediate technology model without significant disruption to existing infrastructure, global interconnectedness, and economic systems. It's a vision that requires careful consideration of its implementation on a grand systemic scale, which is arguably one of the biggest practical puzzles we face. How do you actually do that?
Right. So, technology with a human face is presented as a profound and necessary paradigm shift that offers robust solutions to the ecological, social, and human crises of modern industrialism. Its strengths lie in its human-centered, ecological, and decentralized approach. However, its implementation faces significant challenges rooted in the ingrained habits of consumer society, the prevailing mindset of relentless progress, and institutional inertia. It's a vision that demands real courage and imagination. Okay, let's pull all these threads together now. We've covered a lot of ground, delving into Schumacher's trenchant critique of modern industrial society and then exploring his powerful antidote. What's the complete overarching picture Schumacher paints of our modern industrial world, and how does his alternative stand as a counterpoint to it all? Let's synthesize.
Schumacher's critique of modern industrial society is a profound and comprehensive diagnosis of our modern malaise. He pinpoints technology not just as a neutral tool, but as a deep reflection of our underlying values, our metaphysics, and our approach to life itself. He fundamentally argues that technology has been the primary architect of crisis. Modern technology, shaped by its underlying philosophy and our educational systems, has been the primary architect of the modern world. And this world, he warns, is now tumbling from crisis to crisis. He views modern technology as becoming increasingly inhuman and unnatural because it operates according to its own laws and principles that are starkly different from those governing human nature or living nature. Unlike nature, it lacks a self-limiting principle pursuing endless growth, and thus acts as a foreign body in nature, causing numerous signs of rejection from both the environment and human systems.
And that pursuit of limitless growth naturally leads to an unsustainable way of life for everyone. It just can't last.
Exactly. The current way of life, Schumacher argues, is based on materialism, i.e. on permanent limitless expansionism in a finite environment. He states quite definitively that this cannot last long and causes problems growing faster than the solutions we can devise. This, in turn, has spawned what he calls the threefold crisis. Human nature's revolt, where people feel suffocated and debilitated by vast impersonal systems, environmental breakdown with the living environment aching and groaning under the strain, and resource depletion with serious bottlenecks and virtual exhaustion looming for our non-renewable resources, particularly fossil fuels.
And he's unequivocal about modern technology's failure to help the world's poor, which is a significant challenge to conventional wisdom. He really hammers this point home.
Yes, he is. He states that modern technology has unequivocally failed to alleviate global poverty and has actively exacerbated unemployment, reaching 30% in developing countries and threatening even rich ones with endemic joblessness. He also deeply critiques the degradation and dehumanization of work. It has deprived man of the kind of work that he enjoys most, turning all real production into an inhuman chore which does not enrich a man but empties him. That powerful, almost haunting quote bears repeating. From the factory, dead matter goes out improved, whereas men there are corrupted and degraded. This, he suggests, is a primary driver of widespread modern neurosis and a profound spiritual injury.
And the inversion of prestige in society, where actual producers are undervalued, is another key part of his critique of our values. The 3.3% thing again.
It is. The diminished prestige for production means that actual productive time is reduced to a mere 3.3% of total social time, with prestige inversely proportional to closeness to actual production. This, combined with joyless, fragmented work, ultimately leads to the creation of too many useless people, echoing Marx's dire warning. Schumacher also critiques the prevailing attitude, what he calls the forward stampede, which believes in more, further, quicker, richer, and claims there is no alternative to ever-increasing complexity, speed, and gigantism. He views this as the opposite of progress. And finally, he squarely identifies rich societies as problem children, being like a drug addict, hooked on unsustainable consumption, driving the entire crisis.
Okay, so that's the devastating, multi-layered critique. Now let's look again at his proposed alternative, technology with a human face. It's a complete rethink of how we build our world, centered on human flourishing and natural limits. It's radical, but when you look at the problems he identifies, it truly makes so much sense.
His alternative is truly a new orientation, a paradigm shift based on remembering what human life is really about. It fundamentally redefines technology's purpose, stating its primary task is to lighten the burden of work, serving the human person rather than making him a servant of machines. It champions production by the masses, embracing Gandhi's insight, mobilizing clever brains and skillful hands with first-class tools that are accessible and empowering. This means technology that is inherently human scale and decentralized, recognizing that man is small and therefore small is beautiful, and explicitly rejecting gigantism in all its forms.
And this holistic approach extends to respecting our planet, doesn't it? It's not just about humans.
Precisely. It emphasizes ecological compatibility and resource gentleness, ensuring technology is compatible with the laws of ecology, and gentle in its use of scarce resources, embodying a deep philosophy of nonviolence and humility towards the natural world. The vision includes reintegrating meaningful work, aiming to increase directly productive time significantly, for example, to maybe 20% of social time, allowing for real quality, deep enjoyment, and even making things beautiful with hands and brains, thereby blurring the distinction between work and leisure. This intermediate technology is also designed to be accessible and simple, vastly superior to the primitive technology, but at the same time much simpler, cheaper, and freer than the super technology of the rich.
It sounds like this entire philosophy has a very strong ethical and even spiritual foundation, more than just a technical or economic one. You mentioned the Gospels earlier.
It absolutely does, and this is a key differentiator for Schumacher. He mentions that the homecomers who advocate this new lifestyle draw strength from deep convictions, possessing the most exalted text, nothing less than the Gospels, and the Sermon on the Mount as a guide for an economics of survival. This emphasizes core values like poverty, in the sense of simplicity and non-attachment, sorrow, empathy for suffering, gentleness, justice, and peacemaking. This leads to an emphasis on qualitative growth and true progress, fundamentally rejecting modern technology's drive towards ever greater size, ever higher speeds, and ever increased violence as the opposite of progress. Ultimately, achieving all of this, he concludes, requires a profound call for imagination and the courage to rethink our most basic assumptions and imagine a truly different, more humane future.
Now, the sources you provided don't explicitly mention contemporary sustainable development models, which is a term we use a lot today. However, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we can draw some inferences and see some strong alignments, but also some really distinctive differences between Schumacher's vision and modern sustainability concepts. What do you think?
Absolutely. In terms of areas of alignment, Schumacher's unwavering emphasis on technology being compatible with the laws of ecology and gentle in his use of scarce resources aligns strongly with the environmental pillar of sustainable development. That's clear. His deep concern about inroads being made into non-renewable resources and looming virtual exhaustion mirrors contemporary calls for resource efficiency and circular economies. Also, his powerful focus on technology serving the human person, fostering creative, useful work, reducing modern neurosis, and aiming for a new lifestyle compatible with the real needs of human nature, resonates profoundly with the social equity and human well-being goals of sustainable development. And finally, production by the masses being conducive to decentralization and promoting self-help technology aligns perfectly with local empowerment and context-specific solutions often promoted in modern sustainable development efforts. So there's certainly a common ground, a shared aspiration there.
Okay, so there's a lot of common ground. But what are some of the distinctive emphases or potential differences that make Schumacher's vision unique, maybe even more radical, compared to some mainstream approaches today?
That's where it gets really interesting. Schumacher's radicality of critique feels far more fundamental and morally charged than much of the mainstream sustainable development discourse. While many models today seek to green or incrementally adjust existing industrial models, Schumacher advocates for a complete systemic reorientation of our technological and economic philosophy. It's deeper. There's also a unique emphasis on human work and craft. His deep focus on the intrinsic satisfaction of skillful, productive work of human hands in touch with real materials, and the profound joylessness of modern fragmented work offers a more profound humanistic dimension than frameworks focused purely on economic efficiency or job creation numbers. It speaks to the soul, not just the spreadsheet.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And his famous phrase, small is beautiful, seems to be a much more direct and uncompromising stance against large-scale industrialization than perhaps some contemporary models allow for.
It absolutely is. His explicit principle that man is small and therefore small is beautiful is a more direct and uncompromising stance against gigantism and large-scale industrialization than many contemporary sustainable development models. Those models, while striving for sustainability, often still envision large-scale, high-tech solutions, whereas Schumacher champions the local and the human scale above all else. And finally, the spiritual and moral foundation for the homecomers and the economics of survival derives from the Gospels and the Sermon on the Mount, provides an explicit moral compass that is not always articulated or even acknowledged in more secular sustainable development models.
So while there's common ground, Schumacher offers a deeper, more challenging take, especially on the how and why of true sustainability.
Definitely. This raises an important question. Are we truly ready to embrace the radical reorientation and the fundamental shift in values that Schumacher suggests? Or are we still trying to find sustainable solutions within the very framework he argues is fundamentally broken? Hashtag to hashtag outro.
This has been an incredibly insightful and frankly quite challenging deep dive into E.F. Schumacher's vision. He brings us back to a core, unavoidable challenge. Are we going to continue embracing a path of limitless expansion that treats nature and humanity as mere resources to be exploited? Or are we going to choose one that fundamentally acknowledges limits, fosters genuine human flourishing, and lives in profound harmony with the natural world?
Schumacher's work is a powerful and urgent invitation to question our most fundamental assumptions about technology, about progress, and about what truly makes a society rich and its people well. It's not just about what we can build. It forces us to deeply consider what we should build, and those creations profoundly impact our souls, our communities, and our shared home. It's a call to reevaluate our definition of success, really.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this illuminating deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with a provocative thought, something for you to mull over long after our voices fade. Considering Schumacher's powerful idea that the production of too many useful things results in too many useless people, what does that say about our current definition of productivity and value in your own life and in society? What small, perhaps even radical choices can you make today, guided by the wisdom of limits and the desire for meaningful engagement that could contribute to building a technology with a human face in your own world, your own work, and your own community?
Thank you for joining us on this illuminating journey into Schumacher's thought. We hope these ideas prompt you to reflect deeply on your relationship with technology and inspire you to explore how we can all foster a more humane and sustainable future for ourselves and for generations to come.
Until next time, keep diving deep into the ideas that truly matter.